Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Friday Night Smackdown review. And this review is going to be on last night's edition of Smackdown, which was the August 7th edition. And if you guys haven't checked out my previous video that I uploaded last night, I did an unboxing video showcasing the Back to the Future trilogy on VHS in that VHS box set. So if you guys haven't checked out that video, definitely give it a watch. We'll do a review showcasing the box set and the tapes, which that might possibly be the next video. So that will be coming up. But Smackdown, watched it earlier, and I gotta say, the show was okay, in my opinion. It was an okay show. I really enjoyed the ending to Smackdown with Retribution, the new faction that we saw debut on Monday Night Raw this past Monday, where they were throwing the cocktail bombs at like a generator, and the generator went on fire. So they end up coming on last night and just causing chaos, which I will get to explaining later on. But the whole chaos with Retribution, it just reminded me of what WWE did 10 years ago. We saw this already when they did it with the Nexus. But that's WWE. They take something that was relevant from 10 years ago, and they do it again. It's like, rehashing, stuff that we have seen already. But overall, the Retribution, invading SmackDown, I liked it. Even though we already saw it 10 years ago with the Nexus when WWE did it. But let's jump right into the review. So SmackDown opened up with the Firefly Funhouse. And Bray Wyatt was there, of course. Bray Wyatt ended up welcoming everyone to the Funhouse. Bray Wyatt ended up saying that he needs to address how a bunch of haters have been trying to slide into his DMs, and they end up blaming him for what happened to Alexa Bliss last week. If you remember last week, the Fiend ended up, attacking Alexa Bliss at the end of SmackDown last week, where the Fiend ended up locking in the mandible claw on Alexa Bliss. So Bray Wyatt ended up pointing up at a picture of Braun Strowman on the Funhouse wall. And on the back, there was a whole bunch of picture frames with Braun Strowman's picture in the frames, that were behind Bray Wyatt. And Bray Wyatt ended up saying that that's who you can put the blame on. So Bray Wyatt was saying, you could put the blame on Braun Strowman for why the Fiend ended up attacking Alexa Bliss last week. So Bray Wyatt ended up asking Braun Strowman how he could let something happen to something so precious that he cares about. So Bray Wyatt ended up saying that Braun Strowman should just give him, aka the Fiend, what he wants. Bray Wyatt ended up saying that the Fiend, he, in quotation, will be here later tonight with someone very special. So the Fiend ended up making an appearance later on SmackDown with Alexa Bliss. So Bray Wyatt ended up saying that he's waiting for Braun. And Bray Wyatt ended up advising Braun Strowman that he should just give the Fiend what he wants, or find out what he's truly capable of. So, of course, we saw flashes of the Fiend. Bray Wyatt got all serious, of course, as always, while he's talking about the Fiend. So then he ends up, waving goodbye, and that's how the Funhouse ended, of course. But that was that Firefly Funhouse. Seeing Bray Wyatt, on TV. Bray Wyatt's like, the best thing going on WWE television, along with Bayley and Sasha Banks. So every time when Bray Wyatt's on, you just gotta watch and enjoy what he has to say. But this is all leading up to Braun Strowman getting his hands on the Fiend at SummerSlam, which SummerSlam is in 2 weeks. That's what this is all is. I said it before. WWE created a bridge for Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman. They started out at Money in the Bank. Then Braun Strowman ended up facing Mr. Rogers Bray Wyatt, and at the Horror Show at Extreme Rules, we had the Buzzard Bray Wyatt take on Braun Strowman in the swamp match. So now we're finally going to see the Fiend versus Braun Strowman at SummerSlam. But that was that. Then we went right into the Performance Center. We had the first match of the night. We had Matt Riddle, the original Bro, versus Sheamus. And the match itself, it was a decent match. Matt Riddle, always entertaining when he's in the ring. And it was back and forth between Matt Riddle and Sheamus. The match ended in a disqualification because Chad Gable ended up running down, and he ended up dropping Matt Riddle, ended up being down on Matt Riddle, which caused the disqualification. So after the referee called for the bell, Chad Gable was still being up on Matt Riddle, and Chad Gable, of course, was out there to collect, the ransom of Corbin. That was brought to by Corbin. So Matt Riddle ends up fighting back, ends up punching Chad Gable. Matt Riddle ends up leaping off of the announce table, taking Chad Gable down with a punch. Matt Riddle then ended up slamming Chad Gable's face into the announce table quite a few times. Matt Riddle then ended up launching Chad Gable into the ring steps, and then he delivered a kick to Chad Gable's chest. And so Sheamus was looking on from the ring. Sheamus was not happy about the match ending in a disqualification. So Matt Riddle ended up, dancing around ringside. He's like, you know how Matt Riddle is. But Sheamus ended up grabbing Chad Gable. He brought Chad Gable back into the ring. Chad Gable ended up standing up, ended up turning around. And then Sheamus ended up delivering a bro kick to Chad Gable, which this right here is a sort of a babyface turn for Sheamus right here. So Sheamus ended up taking the mic, and he ends up ranting at Chad Gable for messing up his match with Matt Riddle, because it was all for Corbin's bounty. For Chad Gable's doing it all for the money for Corbin. Then Sheamus was taunting Chad Gable, tells Chad Gable to get back up on his feet. So Sheamus then tossed the mic. He was waiting for Chad Gable to make his way up to his feet. So Chad Gable ended up making it up to his feet. And then we saw Sheamus end up hitting another bro kick to Chad Gable. And that was basically that. But it was a decent match from Matt Riddle and Sheamus up until that disqualification. Either person, either Matt Riddle or Sheamus couldn't lose a match. Sheamus couldn't lose another match because he just lost to Jeff Hardy, in that bar fight that we saw like a couple weeks ago. But yeah, so that was that. So when SmackDown came back from the commercial, we saw Sheamus end up confronting Corbin backstage. Sheamus ended up threatening Corbin to beat him up, shove his crown, and knock his head off his shoulders. Sheamus ended up telling Corbin to try him. Corbin ended up saying that he would put a dent in Sheamus's head if he wasn't busy with Jeff Hardy later on in the night. So that was that. And then we had the dirt sheet with Morrison and the Miz, which was god awful. This whole thing was god awful, where they were cracking jokes at how, Mandy Rose ended up getting little bits of her hair chopped off last week by Sonya Deville, and they end up putting stupid hair piece with eyes on it. It was something that you would see here on YouTube, where somebody who's doing a bad YouTube video where they take little strips of hair and put eyes on it and do a corny, silly voice. God awful. It was a stupid hair piece with eyes on it. Absolute garbage. And then Sonya Deville ended up coming out. She ended up saying, it's not a big deal what she did to Mandy Rose, because she ended up saying that she told everyone what she was going to do ahead of time. Sonya Deville ended up saying that she's a woman who keeps her word. She ends up saying that she liked that she enjoyed cutting Mandy's hair and messing up her makeup last week. She ended up saying that she has no respect for Mandy Rose anymore. She ended up calling Mandy Rose weak. And Sonya Deville then ended up bragging about breaking Mandy Rose in the ring. And Sonya Deville ended up saying that the NXT superstars and future developments, that were sitting at ringside are a terrible crowd because they were booing Sonya Deville. And Sonya Deville was daring Mandy Rose to come out and correct her if she's wrong. So the Miz and Morrison end up pointing to how we haven't heard from Mandy Rose since the attack last week, and that she hasn't posted any selfies. Well, it's because, the reason why that Sonya Deville ended up cutting Mandy Rose's hair last week was because before that, it was revealed that Mandy Rose got a haircut. She got she ended up cutting her short, her hair short. So she ended up posting the picture on her social media accounts. So that was the reason why Sonya Deville ended up cutting Mandy Rose's hair a little bit last week. So Sonya Deville ended up bringing up how Mandy Rose won an award on The Bump, which The Bump is WWE's social media show that they do on their Facebook, their Instagram, their YouTube, Twitter, which I don't watch. I don't watch The Bump. So she ended up bragging about how Mandy Rose won the award on The Bump for making out with Otis. So Sonya ended up saying that Mandy Rose won an award for making out with a dude, and that she's just going to leave it there. So then Heavy Machinery came out. Tucker and Otis ran out, and Otis had the Money in the Bank briefcase. I'm like, holy shit, they found the briefcase. So Heavy Machinery ended up attacking Miz and Morrison. Miz ended up getting sent out to the floor. And Otis was preparing to hit the Caterpillar on John Morrison, but Morrison was able to retreat out to the floor, which he ended up joining the Miz and Sonya Deville. And that was that. But Sonya Deville on the mic, she is really decent on the mic. And the whole opening to the dirt sheet with the stupid hair shit, that hair piece with the stupid eyes, it's awful. Absolutely awful. So then we had Lindsay Dorado versus Cesaro. Match was very meh, in my opinion. You had Cesaro end up getting the win, of course, hit the neutralizer to Lindsay Dorado. That was that. Overall, meh match. So then we had Michael Cole. He ended up announcing that the Miz and John Morrison will be taking on Heavy Machinery later on the night. So Kayla Braxton then ended up approaching Tucker and Otis backstage. And Otis ended up saying that they crossed the line with the so-called jokes about Mandy Rose. Miz and Morrison end up crossing the line. Tucker ended up saying that what Sonya Deville did last week to Mandy Rose was despicable, and that the Miz and John Morrison just won't let it go. They keep on making jokes about it. So Otis ended up saying that he can take jokes all day, but he won't stand for jokes against Mandy, which he calls his peach. So Otis ended up saying that Miz and Morrison will see that no one is laughing after tonight. And that was that. So they confirmed the match, which we saw later on. And then we went to The Fiend coming out. The Fiend came out. Lights go out in the Performance Center. We had the red lights, and the lasers end up flashing all, over the Performance Center. So The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, heads out, and they end up going to commercial right in the middle of his entrance, like when he made his way down the other ramp, and he was standing, outside the ring. That's when it went to commercial. And then when Smackdown came back, The Fiend was in the ring. We had the stupid Virtual Boy red lights covering the ring. Which, the Virtual Boy was turned on once again. I hate that stupid red lighting. And, well, hopefully they don't do that anymore in, the Fiend's matches where they're wrestling with the stupid red light on. And when I went to Smackdown back in December of last year, and The Fiend ended up coming out after the show, which wasn't even showcased on TV. The red lighting there being there live or at the Barclays Center, it was just very distracting. It was hurting my eyes. So, but yes, we all don't like that red lighting. So we had the red lights. The Virtual Boy was turned on, like I said. And we saw Alexa Bliss was on the mat. She was still wearing the same outfit that she was wearing last week. And The Fiend was standing over Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss looked frightened. So The Fiend ended up backing up. And he starts crawling to Alexa Bliss. So as he was close to Alexa Bliss, The Fiend ended up slowly raising his arm, like he did last week, to give the mandible claw to Alexa. And he was looking to deliver another mandible claw. And this time, Bliss ended up grabbing The Fiend's arm and stops him. And so we see Bliss ends up caressing The Fiend's face. So The Fiend ended up stopping her, and he backs off. And then Braun Strowman appears on the screen. Strowman ended up saying that he doesn't give a damn about Bliss, and that he just wants The Fiend. So Strowman ends up going on about how different he is coming out of the swamp fight. He ends up saying that since the Fiend is in the ring, he's looking at the most evil son of a bitch that the world has laid eyes on. So Strowman ended up saying that he tried to resist and fight it. And now he's at his breaking point. He ended up saying what has been building inside of him is coming out. And that is the evil. So Strowman ended up going on, talking, like some kind of monster now that he is. He ended up saying that he is more than the man. He is the thing that nightmares are made of. Strowman ended up saying that he is the monster. He goes on to say that the Fiend can have whatever he wants at SummerSlam. So Strowman ended up telling the Fiend that he has to face his fears and face the monster. So Strowman ended up continuing heavy breathing, and the Fiend was looking on from the ring. And that was basically that. So there you go. It's going to be the Fiend versus Braun Strowman at SummerSlam. So, there you go. And then we had Jeff Hardy versus Corbin. This was pretty okay here, with Jeff Hardy, being there. But the match ended in a disqualification because Sheamus came out. He ended up hitting a bro kick to Jeff Hardy out of nowhere. And so the referee ended up calling for the bell. So Jeff Hardy ended up winning the match by disqualification. Post-match, Corbin ended up arguing with Sheamus. And the referee ended up getting in between Sheamus and Corbin arguing. And that was that. And so then when Smackdown came back from the commercial, we saw Sheamus versus Corbin, which the match itself was, it was a snooze, in my opinion. It was very snooze. Sheamus ended up winning, delivered a bro kick to Corbin because Matt Riddle came down out of nowhere. Matt Riddle ended up springboarding into the ring. Corbin ended up ducking. Riddle went out of the ring. And then Sheamus came in, ended up hitting the bro kick to Corbin. And that was that. Sheamus ended up winning the match. But overall, the match itself was boring in my opinion. So then we went backstage and we saw Sasha and Bayley. And Sasha ended up saying that Bayley's got this. And she most importantly needs her to do this for her because Bayley is going to be having a match against Asuka this Monday on Monday Night Raw. It's for Asuka to earn her shot at Sasha for the Raw Women's Championship at SummerSlam. And both Sasha and Bayley argue over what Asuka ends up wanting. And that is payback on Sasha. So, or it could be, payback on Bayley for what she did to Kairi Sane. So Sasha ends up interrupting Bayley and ends up saying that it doesn't matter what Asuka wants. Now this is all about them because they have all the gold. So we had a staffer there. They interrupt Sasha and Bayley. The staffer ends up telling them that both Sasha and Bayley are needed in the ring for a video conference with Stephanie McMahon. So Sasha looked a bit concerned, and Bayley ends up telling her, "Oh, we've got this. We're fine." So SmackDown went to the commercial. Then when SmackDown came back, Kayla Braxton was backstage interviewing Big E. Kayla Braxton ended up telling Big E what's his next venture. What his next venture looks like going out on his own, being the singles competitor, while Kofi and Xavier, are sidelined. Both Kofi and Xavier are out. So Big E ends up saying that he's not sure where this run will go. And Big E was all hyped up. He he ended up saying that he can assure that he will give all of himself because, and then Caleb Braxton ended up finishing, New Day Rocks. So Big E was getting more hyped up, and that was what happened. And then we went to the ring. Sasha and Bayley were in the ring. Stephanie McMahon ended up appearing on the screen. Stephanie ended up thanking Sasha and Bayley for joining her. Stephanie then praised both Sasha and Bayley for achieving their goal of winning all the gold in WWE. And they thank her and say her positive feedback means the world because there's a lot of negative hate in the locker room. So Bayley ended up saying that they're trying to be role models for girls around the world. And she ended up going on to mention, Stephanie's daughters. So both Sasha and Bayley, they're kissing up to Stephanie. And she ends up bringing up some of their bad actions. Stephanie ends up saying that she isn't sure about being role models, but they definitely have her attention now. So Stephanie ends up saying that she isn't one to hold a grudge. She's a McMahon, and she knows what's best for business. She ends up saying that she doesn't want to lecture them, but she does want to challenge them. So Stephanie ends up saying that Sasha will defend the Raw Women's Championship at SummerSlam. And it could be against, Asuka after, her match with Bayley this Monday on Monday Night Raw. But Stephanie says that Bayley will also defend her SmackDown Women's Championship at SummerSlam against the enemies that Bayley has made on Raw, on SmackDown, and in NXT. So Stephanie then announced that there will be a triple brand battle royal on next week's show. And the winner of that triple brand battle royal will face Bayley at SummerSlam for the SmackDown Women's Championship. And then Stephanie ends up saying, now, that is what's best for business. And that was that. But this is huge news right here. And WWE didn't even, put it out before the show. It's like, oh yeah, let's just throw this in. It's whatever. This is huge right here. A triple brand battle royal where you're gonna have, Raw, the woman from Raw, from SmackDown, from NXT, all going at it to try to get a shot at Bayley for the Women's Championship at SummerSlam. So, it's news, and WWE didn't even promote it until after the show. On WWE.com. They should have announced it. Or promoted it before the show started. So, and with this whole segment, it looked like they did it before they had the NXT developmental crowd superstars there because the Performance Center there was empty. So it was just Sasha and Bayley there, and they were looking up at the screen. None of the NXT stars, future development talent, were behind the plexiglass. But yeah, so that's new. That's new news right there. Triple brand battle royal, where both Raw, SmackDown, NXT women going head to head in the battle royal. And now we had the Miz and Morrison versus Heavy Machinery. This match was meh, in my opinion. The match ended in a no contest because Mandy Rose ended up coming out and she ended up attacking Sonya Deville, who was at ringside. And Mandy Rose then ended up unloading on Sonya Deville. They brought into the ring. Referee ended up calling for the bell, so the match ended in a no contest. So we had Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville brawling in the ring. We had Heavy Machinery and Miz and Morrison end up breaking both of them up. Mandy Rose then ended up tackling Sonya Deville again. The teams end up pulling both of them apart again. But Sonya Deville ended up taking Mandy Rose and tackled her again. So it was just the teams trying to break Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville apart. And that was that. And then when SmackDown came back from the commercial, Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville were still, being kept apart backstage. And we had, lights end up going out backstage. And then we went right back to into the Performance Center with Michael Cole and Corey Graves at ringside. And then we see Retribution ends up coming out, and they start running wild at ringside. They're going all through the Performance Center, and they're destroying stuff. They had baseball bats, crowbars, and other weapons that they carried. And it was a group of 5 people, men and women. They were all wearing black hoodies and face masks. And they ended up chasing Corey Graves and Michael Cole away from ringside, which was hilarious how the way they ended up rushing out of there. And then they were chasing them up. One of the guys was chasing them up the ramp. And one ends up telling the camera guy that this is their house now and that they might want to leave and go home. So they were chasing the cameraman out of there and everybody there. And they end up going into the crowd, Retribution. They end up going into the crowd behind the plexiglass. They end up start attacking the NXT talent and trainees, beating them down. And we had 2 of the guys go out and tip over the Smackdown announce table. And then they were treating, spray paint. So one of them had a black spray paint, one red and one blue, and they're spraying their name and symbols over the plexiglass and in the ring and on the ring steps. So we had one of the guys had a chainsaw. So this guy with the chainsaw starts cutting the ring ropes. And the ropes are being destroyed. And, they're jumping around. Like they love what they're seeing with the one guy with the chainsaw cutting the ring ropes. They're jumping around like pansies. And we had a shot at one of the trainees laid out in the crowd still. And then SmackDown went off the air with the guy holding up the chainsaw still. And then it just faded to black. So Retribution ended up causing chaos at the end of SmackDown, which I said earlier, WWE already did this with the Nexus. But I kind of like this this whole thing with Retribution coming in and invading SmackDown. And I could sense 2 of the women in this stable. One of them, when they were attacking one of the trainees, had curly hair. And one of them had like brunette blonde in it. So if I were to take a guess, maybe the one with the curly hair could be Vanessa Bourne, because there was talks of them bringing Vanessa Bourne up to the main roster. And the one with the brunette blonde in it, it could be Chelsea Green. There was talks of them bringing Chelsea Green up to the main roster. So those are my guesses on who those 2 women could be. The men and the others there, I have no idea. There was rumors saying, it could possibly be Dominic Dijakovic. One of them could possibly be Tommaso Ciampa. There was also talks of either it could be Candice LeRae or Johnny Gargano, part of Retribution. We don't know. So we got to. sorry about that, but I was saying, we don't know who the others in Retribution are. Those are guesses from, fans that are seen. So, but really kind of liked this invasion with Retribution here on SmackDown. Who knows? We're possibly going to be seeing them on Monday Night Raw this Monday. End up attacking some superstars from Monday Night Raw. So we'll just have to wait and see. But that was SmackDown. But anyways, that's it for the SmackDown review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. And until next video, which will possibly be the Back to the Future Trilogy VHS review. So until that video, I'll see you all later.